Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Unstoppable. We got another great guest today, Tony Lucidi, Lucidi Technical Solutions. My buddy Tony, we've been working on some great things together. I'm very happy to have you here.
Well, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So give me the 60-second spiel of what Lucidi Technical Solutions does, and then we'll get into what you and I have been working on.
Sure. So we're a full-service IT consulting company, website design, social media marketing, but predominantly lately helping businesses improve their overall business processes and trying to utilize the existing software that they have to make those improvements.
And you're a big Office 365 guy.
Huge. Yeah.
It's kind of your world. You live in it.
Yep.
I've talked to a lot of people about Office 365.
Yep.
You have a totally different way of looking at it. You really kind of know the nitty gritty, really understand it, understand what it takes from a process standpoint, and is able to help people implement things to really help their business.
Yeah, I think what happens is, and you and I have had this conversation before, most businesses have Office 365. They have no idea how to implement it or utilize it. When I first met you and saw what you guys were doing, you guys were ahead of the curve. You guys have already implemented SharePoint. You guys have already started using SharePoint for an intranet and things like that. Most companies are not even clearly where you are. They're just using, if they're using SharePoint at all, it's just document libraries. Right. No metadata, no nothing, just basics.
And it's crazy because I feel like we haven't even scratched the surface. And then working with you, I feel like we're evolving and we're taking so many leaps, but we're still not there. There's still so much there. I think that really more than anything is people don't understand the power of the suite that Microsoft has put together.
I agree completely. Absolutely.
You have Google, you have Microsoft, you have all these different solutions, and I've used both, and I've come from a world where I was so high on Google. Like, it was so easy. You just set up G Suite, you set up they have everything that you ever need, but it's not even close to what Microsoft's doing.
You know what it is? What's missing is the integration piece of it, right? Even to the point where the basics, right? Everybody uses Excel, everybody uses Outlook, and everybody uses Word. What most people don't realize, all three of those can integrate with each other. I did an Excel program that went into Outlook, pulled the contacts, and passed them on to another application. Simple. But it's the integration piece of it. Google, they don't really have that. They're improving it, but they're just nowhere near where Microsoft is on the integration piece.
Definitely.
And that's where Microsoft is pushing heavily.
Definitely. So let me just tell everybody a little bit about what we got going on so you don't think this is just going to be another boring podcast of us talking about Word and Excel, right? So what we're doing here is we've really kind of committed to making sure that we are a technology-driven company. We want to be a technology company first, real estate development, construction manager second, right? So we've actually established our entire process. We've architected in our mind our entire process and our entire workflow from taking a property from absolutely nothing, just a concept or dirt, right? Where we source this property, we capitalize this property, we get it rezoned, whatever, we get all the approvals in place and go through the whole development process. We build it, sell it or lease it, and then manage it on the back end. And all of that integrates together back into one central system where we can drive our investors and they can see their investment platform. And what we're doing now is we're actually using Microsoft and all the back-end tools like SharePoint or even things like Power BI, Power Automate, all these things that you don't even realize you have in Microsoft. Correct. To actually integrate all those things together, drive all these things together, and automate that workflow so that the next person kind of knows, hey, you're up. You pass that baton to the next person, whether that through email or Teams integration, whatever. You pass the baton and you say, hey, you're up. You're next. We've gone through the discovery stage in our estimating process. We've gathered all that information. Now it's ready to be estimated. Hey, estimators, you guys are up. Here's all the key information from prior, and this is what you guys are doing. And Anthony's kind of, you're helping us manage, map out, architect, and design that entire system, starting with a small piece right now. We've only gotten the taste, right?
And look how much we've gotten in just that small taste.
It's incredible.
Exactly. Look how large that just got.
So if you guys, we're gonna talk a lot about this. I am a big believer in this. I'm just gonna say it right up front. I am a huge believer in automating your processes. It helps you save time. It helps you save money. It helps morale. It just makes everything so much simpler. And this guy has the tools to get it done. So let's just talk about from just the start. Like when people are looking to build out these processes, but where do we start? Take me through the journey of the first meeting and what it looks like.
Well, what did we do with you?
So, okay,
right?
fine.
I mean, basically, it's the same process, right? It doesn't change.
Yeah.
So you and I met, and you came up with an idea of what you want to try to do.
Yep.
And you start from the very beginning. What's step 1? What's step 2? What's step 3? It's my job to guide you through what are the different pieces. Power Automate. Well, what is that? That's your workflow engine, right?
Yep.
So that's going to be the guy moving the stuff around. SharePoint's going to be the place where we're going to hold the documents, where we're going to hold the list. That's my job. Your job is to give me what does that process look like, and I think that's where people get hung up.
Yep. And it's a process.
Oh, absolutely.
Building out the process is its process in itself.
Absolutely,
You
100%.
really have to understand
Yes, you do.
where you're going and what you're looking to do. You don't have to have it all figured out.
No.
The brainstorming can happen. We kicked ideas around and we started off saying we wanted this and it evolved into this.
Yeah.
And not because you wanted to sell us and oh, hey, listen, I can give you more hours. I could sell more money. It made perfect sense when we were
Absolutely.
done. This makes sense. And we could take that piece by piece, right?
Yep.
It doesn't have to be a major overhaul or a major investment. No. You could take it piece by piece.
As a matter of fact, you're 100% right. Where I found success is when you take a small piece and you build on that and you build more and more. What's good about the platform is you can integrate and build on top of it. It doesn't have to be this beginning to end full business cycle. It could literally be a smaller piece, which I highly recommend doing, because then you get your feet wet, you get your ideas out there, you see how well things are going to work, what is working, what's not working.
And we started and so everyone knows, we started with a small piece. We actually started with the Culca Interactive process, right?
Right. Because
we have this video production crew and team and department that we have that has to run efficiently.
Right.
We have a whole marketing department. It's almost a marketing company within the company, right? The way that we operate all this Culca Interactive stuff in the production side. And we needed all those processes to manage the different editors, manage the different processes, manage the different shows. And you helped us kind of design and architect, and we're almost done with it, a whole system that will actually make it much easier to not only will the workflow be easier, right? But managing those people, managing those resources.
Right.
And more importantly than anything is managing the data.
Correct.
Right? Yeah. It's a whole data-driven system where if our editors mess up in spelling or they mess up in this, and listen, guys, it's coming because you guys are going to be watching this and you're going to be editing. You guys don't even know it's coming yet, but it's coming, right? Where anything that they mess up, right, we're going to know about it so we can have conversations with them and we could say, Correct. Hey, listen, the last 3 times you guys sent me something back, we had a problem X, Y, and Z. We need to get this better. We need to make it so that this number of videos or this number of revisions comes back. Right now it's 20, a month. We need it down to 5.
Right. And you're 100% right. That is the key. The data is the key. The improvements to the productivity, those are upfront cost savings. Those are great. But in the end, it is the data. And to your point, I had done applications, some processes where it was checking, you and I had this conversation, it was checking KPIs. Yep. So now management set these triggers that says this task should only take 5 days. And it was tracking that task. And so this way management turned around and they ran a report that says, which one of these, why are we moving off? Why are we not getting this? And they used it as incentives, right? So, because it's a flag now that they're setting. Yeah. So they had set it for 5 days. And in 2 years, they said, we're going to set it down to 4 days. And that became everybody's management incentives. So 100% right. The data is the be-all, end-all, golden child. That's what you really want to get to, is the data.
And we always try to be as transparent as possible, and I'm just going to throw it out there. Our philosophy here at Culca, something that we drive heavily, is we are a technology company first. We are a data-driven company, and we automate as much as we possibly can, down to things like property selection. We want to understand the data. We want to be able to use API. We want to be able to use AI and different types of solutions that will make those processes
Absolutely.
faster. We want to be able to source properties for investors faster than anybody else can. You come with us, you spend a half hour, you tell me all your criteria, and in a snap, we're finding not only the best properties out there, or we're not selling you on BS. We're not selling you the things that don't fit your criteria. We do that with properties. We do that with investors. We do this, but it's all data driven. And you're not going to see those returns in a week.
No.
You're not going to see those returns in a month.
No.
Over time, that data will go through your system, and you're going to work through your workflows just like you do today. And in 5 years from now, 2 years from now, whatever, that data will continue to accumulate. And as you have that data, you're going to be able to make so much more informed decisions just to continuously evolve the company.
And with you, what you're doing is you're using the existing data, right? You could have easily hired a development crew
Yep.
and said, guys, we're going to build this thing. Mm-hmm. And you didn't say it. You said, you know what, I'm going to use this software, and this software. We're going to use APIs. That's an internal way of communication. We're going to integrate them. They're going to talk. Because to your point, you're not going to redevelop the software. I'll just use what's out there. I just need something in the middle that's going to pull it all together and then workflow it out.
And we did that for a very specific reason, right? We did that because although we want to be a technology company, we do not want to be a software company.
No, you don't.
We don't want to be.
It's an excellent statement.
There is no way we're going to keep up with Microsoft. There is no way we're going to keep up with Procore and some of the other systems that we use internally. And to constantly evolve. And they have a whole research and development team at each one of these softwares. And I have probably 6 stages, and each one has multiple softwares. So there's 6, 7, 8, 10, 12, 20, 30 pieces of software that we integrate together, all for different reasons, not to mention the sources that we're pulling data from. There's zero chance I'm keeping up with all those. By the time I'm done building the software, it's going to be outdated.
Absolutely. You can't keep up with it.
You just can't.
The good thing is all the software companies see the value of integration now. Mm-hmm. They're all building APIs. They're all building touch points where you can get to their data now. And that's going to make your job a lot easier because all you got to do is call out to the API, get the data, and then you need a central repository to store it, which is where we're looking for the Microsoft suite to be that workflow engine and that middle ground of storage for some of the key data.
And why wouldn't we, right? Because we do everything in Microsoft. We have our email, we have our Teams, we do everything in Microsoft anyway. You sign in, one login, have access to all this different stuff. It's there, we pay for it, and it's the perfect solution for what we're looking to do. And guys, it didn't happen overnight, right? Like even by the time you came in, we had several years.
Well, look what happened when I came in, right? We were just talking about this before. You had already set up your SharePoint site. You already had your folder structures, and you were going.
Yep.
And then we met, and I started looking at what you had, and I remember this meeting, and I said, why are you using folders?
Yep.
And you looked at me like, well, why wouldn't we? I'm like, well, use the metadata.
Yeah.
And you're like, what do you mean? And within the next week, I had this little proof of concept, and watching your face go from to oh my Lord,
because it makes perfect sense.
Amazing. Yeah. So you got that concept, but again, you adapted.
Yeah.
And you still didn't have the full suite, the full gamut.
So I want to say 2 things right there, right? One is if people don't understand what metadata is, right, or what are they? It's file folders like a storage device versus what we're using.
So you have a document library. You can add folders like any other file system. The metadata are these data elements that you can use, that you use for data validation. You can use for data consistency, but more importantly, through the search. They come up a lot quicker in search. Instead of interrogating a document or a folder, you got this metadata tag. You make it mandatory fields.
Yep.
And again, if there's, let's say you have 15 or 20 folder structures, everybody types it in differently. If somebody types a new folder structure in differently. Now, this is all contained within the back end of SharePoint. The document library can get the metadata tag from the list that you maintain on your own, and it pulls it in, and now it's part of the document library.
So just to try to simplify what was just said, right? Standard folder structure like everybody has on their computer is you go to Project A. Within Project A, you go to Project Drawings. Within Project Drawings, these are all folders that I'm breaking down. You go to, these are the original bid docs. These are the sketches out in the field. These are this. You have all these different folders that are broken down until you get to the final folder you're looking for. It has 3 documents in there. Maybe you could search it. Maybe you could look for it, whatever, right? That's the standard, hey, everybody does it this way.
Correct.
The way that we are currently setting ourselves up and the way that we're kind of moving towards the future is picture the exact same structure. You click through it the exact same way. You still go to Project A. You still go to project folders. You still go to, bid docs or sketches exactly the same way. When you get to the final quote unquote folder or the final destination, you still have those same 3 documents. Only in the back end, all those documents are actually in one, let's call it database, right?
One document library.
Right, one document library that it's actually querying that and filtering that every step of the way to finally get to your three folders. It'll feel the exact same way.
Absolutely.
But now you could filter it however you want.
Correct.
It's not, right now with your folder structure, you're limited to only filtering those 3 final
That's it.
documents that are in that final folder.
And you have to bleed through that, right? So if I want to get, let's say you have a folder structure that's 9 deep.
Yep.
I have to click, 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 click.
Yep.
Well, if it's metadata, I filter on the 9th one, and anything that is in reference to that now shows up.
Yep.
Right? So what's also good about this approach is you're going to get your user base more accustomed because they can create their own views, right? So they're going to start to say, you're going to want to see the data in a specific way. Well, Bob is going to want to see it differently because Bob's in finance and he wants to see the financial documents. It's going to allow Bob to do his own.
Yeah.
Right? So we can have the standard. But if you really push the team, they'll start using it to help them. And now you're helping financing, and your intent wasn't even to help the finance department.
And how many hours a day, a week, a month, a year do people spend having conversations on where did you save that file? Why isn't that file in this folder? Why isn't that file?
Absolutely.
Imagine everybody can do it however they want,
right?
Because all those files are in there. And that's just one. I mean, that's just scratching the surface.
That's scratching the surface.
That's like step one, right? That's step one in order to do it. But it's so powerful to understand the tools. You're already paying the $15 a month or whatever it is that you're paying per user. Guys that are using Microsoft, you got to kind of understand what you could really use it for. I'm going to take it back a little bit, right? First meeting we had 6 months ago, 7 months ago, 8 months ago. How long ago?
I don't know. I'd say about 6 months ago.
Okay,
yeah.
Right? We had a meeting, maybe 2. I don't remember, maybe 1. But all I know is we had this meeting, and after you left, my head spun, right? And I was like, holy shit. Like, okay, fine. We know where we want to be.
Right.
We know where we want to go. What you did was just make the vision clear. And I wasn't ready for you yet, right? And that's what I wasn't ready.
Well, if you remember, you had the grand scheme.
Yeah.
You had it all. And when we started talking, you started to realize this thing is much bigger. I need to come up with something small that we can agree on, that get our feet wet. Let's get this moving in a smaller type thing. And that's where this whole Cold Core Interactive came from.
And there's been some steps along the way in order for me to really solidify. I still have that same grand scheme.
Absolutely.
Like it didn't change, right? But there were steps to really, that we took internally, that you made clear to us that we were able to take to say, okay, we need to get it here, right? When I finally got it here, I now brought you in and we said, let's get one small taste. And listen, I'll tell you right now, the reason why I gave them a small taste was I've heard a lot of guys talk about this, and I'm going to give you a commercial right now, right? I've heard a lot of guys talk about this. I've heard a lot of guys tell you what could be done, and they could discuss it, but when it comes down to actually implementing it, it's a disaster.
Yeah.
It's a disaster. I mean, to the point where, I could tell you stories for days. It's a disaster. So I said, okay, let's start with one small piece. One thing that, listen, I love Cold Core Interactive. We're doing great things here, but this doesn't affect the big business. This doesn't affect the real estate and construction business that pays all the bills and pays all the, that's the bread and butter. So let's start with one small piece. And within 1 week of working on that, I was like, okay, you get it. You get it.
Yeah.
And now we're further into it. We're further along. Like it's gonna work wonders not only for Cold Core Interactive. It's gonna bring this division of the company to a whole new level.
Yeah.
The sky is the limit when we
Absolutely.
start doing it for the rest of the company.
And that's the wonderful thing from my standpoint. When I see the aha moment in someone's face, that's it for me. Because it is a hard sell. We've talked about this. Yeah. It's very hard to get to express this to somebody who can't see the vision, who can't see it. It's also the reason why I always do proof of concepts. I mean, look, my first work with you was what? It was just a basic throwaway proof of concept. I needed to showcase to you because
as much as I got it, I couldn't visualize it.
Yeah, well, and I consider you a high-end user, right? So think about how hard it is to explain to somebody who's just using Outlook and email. Mm-hmm. I mean Outlook and Excel. It's very hard for that vision. So the proof of concept stuff for me really, really works well. And that's the wonderful thing about Office 365. You can create the throwaways. It's not a lot of time up front. It's not a lot of cost up front. It's very quick. It's what we call low code, which means it's not a developer writing code. It's configuration based. I click this, I select this, I choose this, I drag that, and things are created. So it makes it for a very easy way to do proof of concepts quickly.
No, I'm very excited as you can see. So let's talk about, we've had conversations about just general software selection in general, right? And we've kind of kicked the idea around on process versus software and this, and different people have different outlooks. And we had discussed earlier that most people, historically, most companies have been a process first because they've been in business for 20 years, right?
Yep.
We're process first, and then we're software second. You have to find the software that meets the process, right? I have seen a trend, right? And I want to know what you think of this, right? I have seen a trend lately where businesses, there's so many more startups, right? There's so many more people. The 23-year-old kids that are getting
Yep.
into business that don't know anything else. They've never had a process. They just, okay, I want to be a marketing company, or I want to be a whatever, right? Whatever company they're getting into. Software has come such a long way.
Yes, it has.
These off-the-shelf solutions, these out-of-the-box solutions have come such a long way that they all have their niche, right? They all have that a lot of companies that are starting out, that their processes aren't perfected. They haven't been doing it like a well-oiled machine. It's actually becoming a world, and will continue to evolve into a world where it becomes software first, and the software drives the process.
Absolutely, 100%. I agree with you. 10 years ago, it was process first, right? Because software didn't exist, so we had to develop our own. Well, that's costly, that's timely, so I got to get that process down before I can develop the software. Companies came out, and now, to your point, the software has grown I mean, just from my personal example, I had to institute payroll. I don't know how to do payroll. My software that was doing my accounting is now doing my payroll.
Exactly.
It's literally sign up for this, and it does everything. It pays the taxes. It does everything for me, right? So to your point, if I had to hire an accountant to go do that, or I had to develop a process to do that, no, it knows it. It knows the process. It knows what it's doing, and it basically does it all for me. So I agree with you completely. I think what's gonna happen is companies cannot be companies. If I'm making any sense, right? To your point, a 20-something-year-old has an idea. Well, to start up a company, it's very complicated. You got to get all of this stuff. And well, now that can sort of be backburned, and I can just hire someone to configure that and to just, do that. I can focus more on business. And that's where I think the value is really, really coming in. And companies you see, first of all, look at all the mergers and acquisitions, right? Everybody's buying up everybody. We were just talking about this. I think it's Salesforce bought Slack, right? Okay, Slack's a great collaboration tool. Salesforce wants to get more collaboration into it. How do we do that? Let's acquire this. Let's plug this in, build this in. I think you're 100% right. That's exactly the way it's going to go. And it's going to be software first. Yeah. Absolutely, without a doubt. It's not what I was used to.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? In my head,
it's tough
absolutely.
To adopt, especially coming from the world where
I was a developer.
You were
absolutely
creating the software.
Yes, I was.
And you came from a big company, right? You used to work at Estee Lauder. And you came from a big world, from a big company, that there is no software that exists that's going to run Estee Lauder.
No.
It's just not there.
No.
I don't even know if it's there today. Some companies it's not there. But for the majority of us companies, for the majority of you guys watching this,
correct,
there's probably a software solution
absolutely
that has been created by guys that are smarter than me, smarter than you, smarter than us, right? That makes a lot of sense, right?
Sure.
And maybe they're 90% of the way there, and the last 10%, suck it up.
Absolutely.
Suck it up. Adapt, right? Suck it up and adapt. If it's the right solution. I'm not saying to pick any box and say it's the right solution. It has to be the right solution.
You got to do your homework.
It has to be. It took us literally took us about the last 3 years to architect what our software wants to be.
You have a lot. There's a lot of moving parts in your world with your software.
And people don't even. And I'm going to say it again because I don't think people comprehend it. It took us 3 years to choose the softwares that we want. Right? It took us 3 years to architect the entire solution from point A to point Z on exactly what softwares we're going to want. And those are the buckets, right? We literally created what I call the conveyor belt, right? Mm-hmm. I think about the journey of a customer, the journey of a piece of property, the journey of whatever it is your product is. I think about what it is from start, right? What it is from business development to sales, to manufacturing or delivering a product or delivering a service, through to the finances and invoicing that, to the collections, to the data that we're going to drive later on to make better decisions to continue to evolve all those things. Every business, I look at it as a process, and every one of those buckets, every one of those key points, those key touches might have a different software element. Maybe one software will do two things, maybe it won't, right? But you have all these different touches that will run each department or each piece of the conveyor belt, and you establish this entire quote unquote process or suite of software that you're going to use, and then you integrate each one of those pieces together with something like Microsoft. It took us 3 years to establish that.
Well, if you think about it, right, integration is something a lot of them do, but not all of them do. So to your point, you go to buy a software, most people don't look at integration, right? They just look at it, does it accomplish, you make your list, these are the things I need from this software package, and does this thing facilitate that? You're not looking at integration. So now all of a sudden when you're on this bigger path, you're like, well, do you have APIs? Well, no, we're there. And it's like, no. When are you there? What's your roadmap? Because if integration is that now becomes my number 3 item in the list. And to your point, you got to look at the software. You really do. And most software companies give you the free trials. I mean, you've done it, right? You've signed up. You're getting hounded by software companies. Absolutely. Yeah. But you got to do that homework, right? Yeah. What fits me? What suits me?
And the integration was the hardest part, right?
Correct.
So and the way that we look at it, just to kind of give you a little bit more of the on the top, right? So we have at the top, that's where our CRM is, right?
Yep.
It was very important for us to, depending on what we're doing, right? Whether that's real estate, construction, development, culture capital, whatever it is that we're working on, right? Each one of our other buckets has a best-in-class operation software. But we wanted our CRM to make sure that we knew what everything else was doing. And then all those things will establish their process and do their job, but then it all has to integrate into one finance system, right? So in order to integrate all that and understand that, okay, fine, when I'm managing a piece of property and I'm using, Yardi or whatever, I'm using that, and it integrates back into my investor platform, so my investors can see, okay, I give you X amount of dollars, what am I getting in return? This and that. In order to have all those things integrated across the board, it took a very long time, and it took a lot of conversations, a lot of demos, a lot of trial and error, a lot of things in order to architect that entire system. But we did it because we understand that it's the future, right?
Absolutely.
Like we are literally, the business is being built now, right? We have been working for 3 years to build all that up and make it so that we're ready to scale. I don't care if we have 100 guys, 1,000 guys, whatever it is. The system is literally built to scale up to whatever we need it to scale up to.
And with the software the way it is today, with the architecture, scalability is common now, right? Yeah. So it's just basically add more servers, add more CPU, and you're good to go. You can spin up higher, you can spin down lower. What I also like what you did too is you didn't try to find the one size fits all. A lot of companies, I've seen it, I've been a part of it. They tried to get everything, CRM, financing, and you have to realize financing is on its own world.
Totally.
It's always going to have its own world. We're never going to make something fit their world. So the way you chose to do it is you said, I'm not looking for the be-all, end-all. I just need these pieces to talk. And that's where the key is, right? You didn't try to go for that because it would have been futile. You would have gotten frustrated and said, you know what? I'm sorry, this is impossible. There's nothing out there. And you would have stopped.
And you know how many times people had said along the way, why don't you just build it, right?
Yeah, no.
No way. No way. I've seen it. I've been a part of it. And building it, maybe it's good for 6 months, maybe it's good for a year, maybe it's good for 3 years, right? Eventually there'll become a time where you're trying to rebuild it. You're trying to redo it. You're trying to
Well, then you
up.
become a software house, like you said. It's one thing to build it with a long-term vision of selling it or doing something else with it, but when you start to become a software house, and that's a mistake a lot of companies with big money do. They develop these things, and now they're in these situations where they have all this custom stuff, but now I got all these SaaS providers that are providing similar functionality, right? This piece can be done by that SaaS. This piece. Now you say, well, what are we going to do with this? And now try to decouple that. Now it's part of your business process, right? Now it's part of your critical mass. Yeah. Decoupling that becomes a nightmare.
And it becomes a weak point, right? Because
yes, it is. That's my point.
You're not a software house, right?
No.
You're not a software house. You're not. That's not what most of us are in the business of doing. So to try to do that, it doesn't work, right? You can't evolve fast enough.
No.
So for me, it just made sense on my third time around it. Like listen, I built the custom softwares. I've done and you learn your lessons. It just made sense to me, and most of the time, it made sense to me to get somebody who was already doing it. Most of the time, you find that the guys that are leading the way, the big names, the big softwares in your industry, they're leading away for a reason.
Right.
And once they start to lead the way, this is what's a little screwed up about it, right? And in most cases, right, once they start to lead the way, it's very difficult to catch them, right? Because Salesforce, for instance, right? No, we don't use Salesforce, oddly enough, but Salesforce was a huge piece of the puzzle. It was very much considered. We decided not to use it because we felt it was too heavy and there were simpler solutions. Mm-hmm. But Salesforce is leading the way. It's going to be very difficult to catch a company like Salesforce because they just keep spending money and they keep getting better and they need a collaboration tool. They buy Slack.
Absolutely.
You just go out. Companies that are that well capitalized, it's very difficult to catch.
You're
them.
not going to keep them.
No.
You're not going to catch up with them.
And this is other software companies that's what they're in the business to do.
And here's the thing: the one who wins are the users, right? Because you got the small guys trying to compete, you got the big guys trying to either buy in the small guys or improve what they already have because they want to keep their market share. The user winds up getting. You're going to benefit from that, right? Is it a monopoly? Is it not? You can have that whole conversation. But the reality is, you're going to get a better product because they're going to constantly try to improve it. If it's yours and you're developing on your own, that's a rabbit hole.
If Microsoft stopped, Google would catch them, right? I mean, that's
correct,
it. They're far ahead, right? But if Microsoft would stop, Google would catch them.
Correct.
And I think that it just, to me, don't be in the software game. Pick the ones that make the most sense, and then use integrations like we're doing to integrate them all together and make them work. And that's how you customize it. You customize it by what's the handoff, what's the data being passed from one to the next, and what's the data at the end. How do you accumulate all that data from all these pieces into one key platform, dashboard, whatever you want to call it, that makes it so that you can read it easily, you can make key business decisions, you get all those KPIs.
You take that big data, and now that AI is hitting real big, you put some machine learning behind that. You put some sort of AI process behind that. You're going to see data. You're going to see trends that you would never think you'd see, right? So, I mean, and AI is just, in my opinion, it's just getting started. It's
and that there's a real opportunity there, right? Because a lot of people haven't got that yet, right? In 10 years from now, that AI is going to be available to everybody. It's like going to get a Big Mac, right? But today, a lot of people haven't gotten that. So if you invest in that, if you're ahead of the curve, if you understand the power of machine learning and power of AI, and understand that literally you could process this data, right? Get ahead of the curve, get the data in your business, and you could process that data instantly. Instantly, right? It's no more, as long as you understand what you want to process and what you're looking for, and it's repetitive, it happens instantly, right? There's no more guys.
And on any data element you choose. Demographics, and anything, right? So as long as the data is there, the AI, the machine learning, as long as you can tell it what it is you want to, what you're looking for, how you want to categorize this, then absolutely.
So for real estate, right? I'm going to talk real estate. I'm going to talk our business, right? If we want to target markets, prime markets, submarket, whatever, we want to target markets, right? That jobs are rising, crime is down. There's been development, so we see retail, we see industrial, we see Amazon, right? I only want. Somebody came in here the other day and they're like, we only look in markets, like, because they look at small, like, tertiary markets for, like, whatever, right? But one of the, I don't want to give their whole business model, but one of the things that they said to me, and I don't think they'll care that I say it, is they only look in areas that there's a Starbucks or a Walmart. He's like, because I know that it's built up enough to have a Starbucks and Walmart.
Good point.
Right? And now I know that it'll support my business. And I was like, wow, that's a great.
That's interesting.
It's a great way to look at it, right?
How did they get to that point?
By processing.
They processed
data, right?
they got the data.
Right? It was just in this particular business, it was very kind of unique that they looked at it that way, and I thought it was very important. But let's say that was one of our things. I only want a Starbucks within a 30-mile radius. I only want. Once you establish that criteria, you spend 5 hours, 6 hours establishing that criteria and understanding what someone's really looking for and where they're looking for it and what drives, what their KPIs are, what their drivers are, right? It's no longer searching data and being on LoopNet for hours and hours and hours, trying to figure out alerts to what came on. You literally click a button
Yeah.
and it's done.
Absolutely.
And it's constantly going out there and searching the internet for new data.
And the thing with AI machine learning, the more data, the better it gets.
Yeah.
So that's why the big boys in the world, the Googles, the Facebooks, the Instagrams, they're all using AI at this point. And you can see it because their targeting is getting better and better and better.
Yep.
Right? Just the other day, I went into a Wendy's, bought a cup of coffee with a credit card, came outside, sat in my car for 2 minutes, open up Facebook, and there's a Wendy's ad.
Yeah.
Think about what had to occur, and look how fast that happened.
Yeah.
So the big boys are doing it,
Yeah.
right? It's just a matter of time before, to your point, it's going to be on my cell phone, and I'm going to swipe through certain demographics in certain markets and say, yep, that's the one I want.
I mean, from a marketing standpoint, Google alone, some of the things they're doing with geo-targeting and this and geofencing.
Geofencing.
Geofencing is incredible. You literally, if you want to target homeowners that are doing work, and that you just put a geofence around Home Depot.
Yeah.
Right? You put a geofence around Home Depot, right? And then if they come into your office, you can, once they walk in the door with their phone, you count that as a conversion because they know that they walked into your office.
They're even at a point now where they call IP targeting. They can target an IP address.
Really?
Yeah.
So, I mean,
it's getting to that level, right? So the fence is around the yard. The IP targeting is in the actual home itself, the router and the whole 9 yards.
And
so,
listen, and that might, some of the...
Yeah, some of it scares people.
And I'm not here to tell you whether I like it, don't like it.
Yeah.
This, that. Quite frankly, I don't care. It doesn't matter what my opinion is. It's happening, right?
Right.
So I want to use it to my
Exactly,
advantage,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And that's what I'm going to do. But you don't have to get so complex. You don't have to be so scared of it, right? You learn it. You understand it. You keep on evolving over time and really kind of understanding what drives your business, how to use this data, talk to guys like you, bring you in and really kind of how do I really take this data and use it as a tool
and that's where the key comes, right? So you spun off your SharePoint. Kudos to you guys because you guys really went beyond where I would think a normal company would go, just not knowing SharePoint and stuff. But to your point, get somebody in there who understands it, right? Get somebody in there who can help guide you through this whole process and be the architect, be the idea guy, that you can bounce off of. When you and I sit in a room, we start talking, ideas fly. Yeah. And it's a great back and forth and it works very well. If you're trying to do it on your own, you're looking up Google, you're looking up tech documents. You really can't go that route.
And to that point, it's a group effort, right? Like,
absolutely.
I'm not gonna tell even Markella what her job is, and with Colca Interactive, right? And the process she goes through. I'm not gonna tell my finance department what they need and how they want to do it. You got to bring them in. You got to ask questions. You got to understand their pain points. You got to understand how you want to help them because you can't do everything. But it doesn't have to be that complex. It doesn't have to be that big. You could start small. The things that you do every day, that same email, that same task, that same folder structure, that same thing that every day
I say it all the time. I can guarantee you I can sell most people they have Office 365 on just workflow alone because I know every business has something. You get an email, you then send it over to Becky. Becky reviews it and she sends it to Bob in finance. That entire thing can be automated. Mm-hmm. Think about that alone, right? Yep. Just that one little piece, to your point. Take that small piece. What is the time savings on a day-to-day basis from that? And then turn around and say, well, how long is Becky reviewing it before it goes over to Bob, right? So that becomes your data point. Becky, listen, it's taking you 3 days to review this document, get it over to finance. Can we do a little better here? What can I do for you to make this work better for you? And now you have a happy employee, you have an increased productivity, and you got people using the software that to your point earlier, you're already paying for.
Yeah. I mean, there's just so many things, right? I could judge my subs on their recs, right? They every month they put in their requisitions. They want to know, I want to get paid for X, Y, Z, this, that. If every single month I have the same subs, I have this problem, I have this problem, I have this problem. At the end of the day, I could automatically spit out a report card.
Yes.
And say, hey, sub A, I don't like what you've been doing because you're doing, you get a D in this because it judges how many revisions, how many.
Absolutely.
There's a million things that you could do once you have that data.
Yes.
I'm not saying I'm going to do that to the subs, but I might. But there's a million things that we can do once you have the data and once it's all there.
Open your mind.
Yeah.
Right. Open your mind to see where you could possibly utilize something as simple as what we're talking about. You're expanding. You're going to the next level. You're going to your end vision.
But that's what we set out to do.
Correct.
That's what we.
Well, that's where everybody should wind up going, right? So in the end, you're going to start with this small process, and you're going to say, you know what, that worked pretty well. You know what, I'm going to now put this in sales. So I got finance in there. Let's put sales and marketing in there. and let's see if we can do this. And then all of a sudden you start to notice, well, there's a lot of touch points with these multiple, so why don't we just automate these touch points? And it grows, So even if you don't see the vision like you,
Yep.
if you start with something small, I can guarantee you're going to see that small value add. Once you start to see that, then it's a snowball effect.
And do it over time. Start implementing things over time. Just start with the basic workflows, the things that you have over and over and over. And not only is it going to save you time, it's going to save you money. It's going to make everyone that's working with you happier because it's going to make their job easier, and they won't get rid of that.
If you think about it, what is the most annoying part of most people's? It's the day-to-day task.
And the monotony.
The monotony.
The bullshit.
The same task over and over again, doing it over and over again. That's where you're not getting innovation. They're not trying to improve the overall process because they're stuck in that mode of doing the day-to-day simple. If you can automate that, you're freeing up time, you're freeing up innovation.
And I always tell everybody, and I'm going to, I tell everybody that most of their day is spent on thinking about what they're supposed to do next, right? What is the next thing I'm supposed to do? You do one thing, it's like, oh, great.
Yeah.
I did it. You know, you feel accomplished because you sent those emails or your inbox is cleared or whatever. What do you do next, right? Gearing up, grabbing your book, reading your notes, understanding what the next task is, itemizing those tasks, understanding that task list. That's a big portion of your day.
Yeah.
What we've done here is, and started to, we're not done, but we're going to be, right? What we've done here is we automate that, right? Where like you literally get an email and say, the baton has been passed to you. That goes into a whole list of your tasks, right?
Yep.
But you get an email saying the baton has been passed to you. You're now up. Here are your tasks. And we drive that all with a system that we call KDOT, K-A-Y-D-O-T, right? My little logo down here, KDOT, that's where it comes from, right? But we call KDOT, where KDOT sends you a task, right? And it's like our Alexa or it's our smart or intelligent business process system, whatever you want to call it, that says, here you go. KDOT has assigned you X, Y, and Z, these tasks. And every single time we do anything, KDOT will inform the next person that we pass the baton off to them. And if you do that, and you work through a system, and you don't have to get that complex with it. You don't have to do that. But just sending that email saying, hey, Mary, or hey, Sue, you're up. You have to send this invoice. And, when the invoice is sent, great. Like whatever. Someone gets informed that the invoice is sent. Whatever it is that you guys are doing constantly.
But also think about later on where you can get sophisticated enough to say, also check and validate the invoice itself. Right? Help these people out. Say, listen, I spotted this, and this is where the AI stuff comes in. This doesn't look right. This looks off. So it's, hey, Mary, this invoice is ready to go out, but I've noticed something here on this line item, something here on this line item. Or did you know that this line item, this product goes along with this line item, and you should suggest, you see where I'm going with that type of thing. Yep. That's where the whole, to your point. And then it becomes assistive, right? So you're getting rid of the mundane day-to-day stuff, and you're allowing the team now to be innovative, and allowing the team to be more thought-provoking in how do I improve the overall process.
They have more data to make better. They stop spending their time thinking about what they're supposed to do, and they spend their time thinking about how to make it better.
You got it.
And like things like as simple as this, right? A ton of service providers are going to be listening right now, right? You provide a service, right? By the time that service is complete, your project management team then has to submit some sort of documentation to the finance department. Maybe that takes 2 days, right? Maybe it takes 3 days. And then the finance department then gets it on the 12th and bills it out on the 15th. That's another 3 days, right? And then by the time you get paid, it's 15 days after that, 30 days after that, whatever it is that, net 30, whatever, right? Imagine you could say, hey, project management team, I need you to get that down to 1 day, 2 days. You save a day there. Hey, invoice team, I need you to invoice that within 24 hours of you getting it, right? Which is more, that's more than acceptable. Most of it's just sitting there right there on their desk anyway. Sure. They're just not even realizing it because you're not giving them the information or the data telling them how long it takes.
Let's say it takes me 3 days to review this. If the data is there to help me review it, right? And the data says this looks good, right? I'm doing less of that.
But I'm taking it even a step back, right? Simplifying it, right? To the point where, and I agree with you 100%, but I'm simplifying it where if you eat up the 3 days here, the 3 days here, and it's a week before you invoice, you get it down to 2 days, your cash flow is going to be better.
Absolutely.
It's a direct return on investment.
To your point. And that's just process, right?
That's simple.
That's just basic.
That's A-level stuff.
I love that. Yeah. That's basic task management, right? That's like, here, Becky, this is yours now. You do it. nothing else changes other than that's automated, and if I can improve that, right?
That's it. And Becky in
Yeah.
finance isn't doing anything wrong.
No.
She's not doing
No.
her job. She has a million things to
Correct.
do, and there's really nothing that grades her on what gets out. It gets out when it gets out, and it does what it does, and it is what it is, right? And it just sits in her inbox for an extra day or two because she was going over these other reports or doing this. But imagine there was a direct grade that said, listen, at the end of the month, we're going to review this. And listen, right now it's 5 days. We really got to work to get it down to 3. And then when it's 3, we really got to work to get it down to 2. And if you keep on getting those things better and better and better over the course of time,
Yep.
you're going to be a better company for
Listen,
it. And you're going to make more money.
people want to be guided. When I implemented some of my bigger workflows, it was at first not taken with good reception. But once I included it in my overall review process, saying, listen, your stuff's coming in late, let's say 5% of the time. Do me a favor, you get it to 2%, we got a bonus coming up. You got your raise coming. My point is people want that guidance, right? But how do I give it, right? You got 30 people working under you. How do you give it? Well, if you're just simple from what you just described, simple process flows, nothing else, you can then see how things are moving. You can then instruct people, improve your job, help them on their jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
So, I mean, listen, we could probably talk about this for days. My point to everybody is if you're not looking at things like this, and I hope we didn't overwhelm anybody more because it seems
when you and I get together.
Because it seems overwhelming,
Yeah.
right? And there's a lot you can do. There's a lot there, right? But for the very, very simple basics of just task management, just workflow, just the passing of the baton or the hey, let's try to get this down to 2 days instead of 5. Simple things, just implementing a handful of things that drive your business.
Even what we talked about, folders to metadata.
Yeah.
That's simple alone, and letting people view it and filter it and sort it, right?
It will make the world of difference.
Right. You have to remember, if it's 16 deep, what level is the 8th guy? Where is he? Where is he buried or she buried? That alone.
And not only that, naming, right? So right now your files, the way that you name them, right? If they're not named perfectly, you can't find them. Right. Whereas with metadata, what happens is a window pops up and it says, what project is this for? Project A. What is the address of that project? Here it is. What's the date? And automatically populates. What's this? What is this for? What's the status?
Right.
Right. And now the status says pending, right? Well, I'll tell you what, when you change that status in that file from pending to approved, you don't have a whole bunch of duplicated files.
Right.
You don't have the pending one and then the approved one and then how many times do you have all these different files and all these different things? You change that status.
Right.
It's the same file in the same place, just different information, and you could access it.
Look how many companies have done that. I have a proposal document. I take that same document and I call it proposal _ approved.
Yep.
Right? Because then the word _ approved means it's approved.
If you do it that way, and somebody else says accepted or somebody says
But think
final.
about that. Now that document is replicated how many times? Right? Over and over and over under those different statuses. That's not the original document,
And if
right?
you do it perfectly, it's still a pain in the ass.
Absolutely.
But what happens if you don't do it perfectly?
Correct.
One says accepted, one says approved, one says final, one says this.
Yep.
It just gets to be a whole clusterfuck, obviously, of information that it doesn't work, right?
No.
But if you could have this metadata that's actually sourcing it for you, because it's giving you the answers, right? It's a drop down. It's a drop down. Approved. You can't screw it up.
Data consistency, data validation. Right? You're not typing it in wrong. Yep. You're picking from a drop down. I can only pick.
And now
what's
it's in
there.
one big database for everyone to search.
Correct.
Just that small change alone could change a business.
I agree completely.
And you do one at a time.
Yep.
And eventually you'll get to the point where you're doing all of them.
Correct.
And if you could get to the point where you're doing all of them, you're going to be in a class that no one else is. That's what we're trying to build here, right? We're trying to build a technology company that focuses on real estate and construction, that's in a technology class of its own, not by reinventing the wheel, not by spending millions and millions and millions of dollars inventing our own software, by just using the tools that we have in a smart, intelligent way, and in a way that was designed, we spent a lot of time designing it, designed to do it that way. And if you take the time to do it, you could change the game. It really is a game changer.
I agree.
Well, listen, Tony, thank you very much. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for everything you're doing for us and working through that.
I'm excited.
Anybody needs to get in touch with you, how do they do it?
Lucidi at ltechconsulting.com.
Awesome. What's your ltechconsulting.com, your website?
ltechconsulting.com.
ltechconsulting.com. Reach out to him. At the very least, have a conversation. Down to earth. We could take it from this big to this big. He could really help you out, and it's made a difference for us, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming in and talk with us.
All right. Thank you.
All right.